This is gonna be a good video. Everyone, Mama Jane here. I'm gonna talk about something that's really personal to me today. Getting confused. I am a very easily confused person. I'm not that bright sometimes, and sometimes things can just throw me off completely and I get confused. Being the way that I am, comics are sometimes some of the most confusing things in the world. I mean, let's not even get started on the X-Men, because just those timelines are just like all over the shop. Anyway, sometimes I'll read a series that I have no idea what's going on, absolutely none, and there's a few different reasons that I will read them. But for some reason, no matter how confused I am, it takes an awful lot to get me to drop a series. So I'm going to talk about some of those today. Morning Glories. This series started... So there's a bunch of kids, teenagers, gifted teenagers, some of them not. And they all go to this really fancy private boarding school, and they all get into this private boarding school. And you know, I just really don't even know how to explain it from there. So the boarding school, the children, they're using them for some experiment. Once they get in the school, their parents don't know who they are, or their parents get murdered, or they can't leave the school. It's really confusing. And then there's time travel. Again, there's one of the characters and you're talking to adult her, but young her doesn't know about it. And then there's another character that goes back in time and then gets imprisoned, and she's there the whole time, and it's just so confusing. You don't know why the kids are there. And they all seem to have some kind of psychic powers, maybe, sort of, maybe not. It's never really explained. And then there's like another group of kids that were put into the school that are like trained by this other dude that's apparently really important, and it's just so confusing. I mean, it started off really cool, but then it just got all over the shop. It's like trying to figure out who's doing what and why they're doing it. You have no answers. The only reason I kept reading this series is because, one, it was beautiful, and two, there's this character called Ike, and everybody hates Ike. He's just this awful, slimy, sleazy rich kid, and for some reason, every time he's in the story, it's just great. He's awful and horrible, and you just love to hate him, and he's pretty much the only reason that this story is worth reading at all. So I hate Ike, and so does everybody else. Then there's Shutter. Shutter is illustrated by Owen Gianni. Go back to my previous videos and look at all the trouble I have pronouncing this dude's name. Shutter is a weird one. It follows a character called Catherine, and she was a famous explorer, and then she stopped being a famous explorer. But in her world, there's also like weird alien people and multicolored people and dragon people and like sentient robots, and like there's a skull butler, like a butler that's just like a skeleton. And they're all about, I don't know. Seriously, that's all I can give you. They're trying to stop this secret organization that's trying to keep a celestial jellyfish type creature captive, because when the jellyfish gets unleashed, it's going to destroy their universe and create others. I don't know. I really do not know. The first arc of this one was really cool, and it's such a crazy, trippy, drawn world that, you know, the fact the story's not all there is okay. But then anything after that, I don't know. The father's supposed to be dead, but then he's got children that are older than younger than how long ago he was supposed to have been dead, and it just doesn't make any sense, and you don't really know what the characters want. You're not even entirely sure what they're fighting for. You don't even find out about the celestial jellyfish until like way later in the series. So there's Shutter. I can't give any more explanation on Shutter because it doesn't make any sense. We've also got Paper Girls. Paper Girls is a perfect example of how just because a series is confusing doesn't mean it's not a good series. So this one is about a group of like sort of 12-year-old girls, and it's called Paper Girls because they deliver the newspapers first thing in the morning. And they all meet up and they discover a time machine, and it sends them into the future, and then it sends them into the past, and they all go to different locations, and then there's maybe aliens, and then they're flying dinosaurs, and I'm super down for flying dinosaurs and like riding flying dinosaurs. And while it's a great series, and the girls are really likable, and the story is something you really want to find out what's happening, you just don't know. It's so confusing sometimes because it hasn't actually given any concrete answers to why this, that, or that is happening, but it's so much fun. So I really recommend picking up Paper Girls, and it's awesome, and it's so pretty, and it's you know, it's a real girl power series, so that's a really good one. I like Paper Girls, but I'm really confused. And then the worst of the lot. The worst of the lot is a series called Bodies. It was a mini series by Vertigo, and it was one of the first things I ever picked up in singles, and I think there was 6 issues. There could have been 8. I honestly can't remember. It was the weirdest thing I've ever read. So there was a bunch of different time periods. Again, it's time travel. It's always time travel. It is so hard to make time travel not confusing. There's the same body, the same mutilated body is found in different time periods, and it's about how each different police officer, detective, whatever, deals with that individual case. And then the bodies come back to life, and, you know, they're all getting betrayed by their fellow cops or their fellow detectives or, like, whatever. Like, one's in modern-day England and one's in, like, you know, friggin' Jack the Ripper times, and it's just so confusing. And like, I can't even actually tell you what the story was. It's like all these detectives find a body, and then the body disappears, and then the body comes back to life, and then it ends. And like, there's a part like the old-timey Jack the Ripper detective was gay, and then at some point he's drinking the body's blood, and it's like, it's so weird. And the reason I kept reading this one is because I thought maybe I just wasn't smart enough to get it. But really, it shouldn't have been a criticism of the reader, it's a criticism of the comic. So either it was too smart for the average person to get, or it was just confusing as hell and no one was going to understand it. So either way, there's nothing wrong with being clever, but when you're overly clever, it just, no, people don't want that. People don't want to read that shit. It's hard. I didn't know what was going on. And it wasn't even that pretty. It wasn't that fantastic that I was like, oh, this is beautiful, I need to read this. So, Bodies, weirdest thing I've ever read, never made any sense, just so confusing from issue 1 to the end. Weird. So, something a lot of people wonder, and I wonder myself, is why do you continue with these series that either are confusing, or they don't make sense, or they're not written well in a way that's clear? Because that's what comic fans do. We'll read things that don't make sense because they're beautiful. Maybe the art is wonderful and enjoyable, and that kind of makes up for it not being super clear. Or maybe because, like something like Paper Girls, it's a good kind of confused. It's a good kind of not knowing what's going on. But I know that a problem that I have is I get invested. If I've read a certain amount of series, I'll keep reading it even though I'm not really sure what's going on. I feel like I've sunk so much time into this series that I have to finish it. That's just how us weirdo nerds are. We keep going with things even long after we should have stopped. I mean, it's the same for anyone that's continued watching a TV series that wasn't good anymore, or kept reading a book that sort of just because they liked the last one. It's just how people are. People like to finish what they've started, and really, there's no harm in being a little bit confused sometimes as long as you enjoy it. I'm Mama Jade, and I hope you enjoyed my latest video. I will catch you next time. Bye!